Welcome, everyone, to Mystical Awakenings Radio here on a lovely Sunday afternoon. We're glad you could join us. Before we bring our guest on today, if you saw last week's show with Mark Jagger, he played a clip or one of his documentaries about our guest. And we'd like to show that again so you can truly get a scope of what this gentleman did and is doing. Trying to contact aliens. It's truly amazing. So before we bring John on, we are going to play this video and enjoy it and take in the scope of what this gentleman has done. So go ahead and roll that, hon.
There seems to be within man a universal musical code, as if it is a higher language written into the very fabric of our DNA. Certain tones and frequencies evoke specific feelings and emotions within human beings. Is it possible that there are other beings in space who respond to this same universal symphonic language? John Shephard of Kewadin, Michigan, believes it's possible. He has broadcasted musical signals out into space for decades, attempting to communicate with advanced intelligences. So, John, where did this all begin?
It began in my early years and my fascination with electricity and the unknown. For the unknown is a mystery to be solved. I always kind of considered myself an explorer. I'd be looking for deeper meanings in things and why they are what they are.
There's no doubt that John has a fascination with extraterrestrials.
The thing about ETs for me is I feel like there's an incredible knowledge base out there. Why, shouldn't we communicate with them? Why shouldn't we study them? Why shouldn't they share ideas with us or us with them? We could advance so fast, so far.
John's electronic projects started growing more and more. As they started to take over his grandparents' home, they encouraged John in his endeavors.
One of the things that we did was I set up a 150 watt vertical marker beacon transmitter. We called it for short VMB. And the device was designed to send out binary tone codes, 16 different notes that were adjustable, and they would run 24 hours a day, these tones, and they'd be sent out electronically on the ULF band into the ionosphere to try to home these extraterrestrial devices or beings in. Then there was this one interesting incident between Shush Mountain and Shanty Creek near a power substation that fed power to these two resorts. Guy driving his pickup truck down the hill, and when he got partway down that hill, his truck stopped immediately, stalled out, the power went out, his lights, everything. And he described what he thought was an object like a spherical object with a ring around it, like Saturn, a planet. He might have been there 3 or 4 minutes. He looked up and it was just begin to lift up and fly away. And when it did, he was able to restart the truck. That's from the Sheriff's Department interviewer description that I actually heard and saw the written notes on.
With the help of his grandparents, John had developed a completely new studio. The studio was 42 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 2 stories high.
I built this huge project, a research facility, and we called it Project S.T.R.A.T, Special Telemetry Research And Tracking. That was the acronym for the operation as a whole. And it included the transmitting of music, it included the searching and detection of unidentified aerial phenomena, it involved all that kind of thing, as well as connecting with people who have maybe seen unidentified flying objects and discussing it and writing it down, making notes, recording these reports. So it was kind of an all-in effort to try to evaluate this phenomena that kept coming into our space, into our time.
John had started gaining attention from many news outlets.
People who were in the news business or in newspapers or what have you, the media, became interested because one would tell a story and the media would pick up on it. So there'd be this little flurry of activity. Then what got interesting is later on, when all this was kind of circulating in the national stage, I even got to appear on Joan Rivers, which was kind of fun. And there were numerous other things, documentaries, and now of course this Netflix thing, and many things in between. I can't even remember them all.
It is recommended that you watch the Netflix original documentary entitled John Was Trying to Contact Aliens, directed by Matthew Killip. There you will learn much more about John's personal life.
And this is Project S.T.R.A.T Station 1, which is broadcasting to you from beautiful northwestern Michigan. And closing out our program tonight is a little music from Stephen Halpern, piece titled Black Rock. One of the things I'm working on now is we're setting up a studio here. Well, I've had a studio most of my life of one form or another, but this is more of the kind of studio you would broadcast programming from, music programs, kind of like we did at Project S.T.R.A.T or Station 1. But now we're doing it in the form of podcasts. That's what we're just getting into. I'm also recording a bunch of music productions from my own works. So I'm combining these ideas as well as playlists from other musicians and artists who do similar things. So music is a great medium for expressing that, sharing that, opening that realm up to the mind, to the intellect. Music is a key, and so is sound.
John Shephard continues on his pursuit of the unknown. I had a fascinating time visiting John in his studio. His love for music, sound, and the unexplained resonates soundly with all of us.
And welcome back. I want to thank Mark Jagger for letting us use that video. So without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce the man who truly did and is trying to contact aliens. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Shephard. Welcome, John. Can you hear me, John?
Can't.
Okay, let's, do you have a mute button there? The microphone button, is that muted? It'd be on the, I believe, the left-hand side. I'm not sure. Can you hear me though, right?
You're breaking up. I'm getting echo and not hearing you.
Oh, let me refresh this.
Delay here somewhere.
Can I do that, Deb? Refresh it. Hello,
How you doing?
Good.
Hello, folks. This is way up in northern Michigan.
So everything's good now. We can hear you. You can hear me, right?
Not hearing you on the other end, but here I am in my studio doing what I do best.
Deb, can you come in for a minute?
Hi, guys. I'm going to remove you both and then put you both back in. The microphones are on. I'm thinking there might be a Wi-Fi issue.
Okay.
So I'm going to remove all of us and put you two back in and see if that helps.
All right. Thank you. Hey. How's that, John? Still having an issue, huh? Okay, we're going to get this fixed. We apologize. Can I get you back in, Deb, for a second?
Hi. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, why he can't hear you. We did test it all before the show, and he heard us fine.
Yeah, I can hear him. Do we any of us have to refresh or anything?
I don't know.
That would take us out of the studio.
I think what we're going to do is I'll type to John, or on the screen for
Yeah,
him
would screw everything up.
to leave the studio and come back in.
Yeah. Okay. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed that video. That was really cool. You can see the, to what extremes this person went to do his passion, and truly amazing. And we're going to get into some of this stuff too. So, John, if you can hear me, it says try leaving the studio and come back in, and do on the link, so you can go off and come back into the studio. If you can hear me, I think he's getting a delay, is what's going on here. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but yeah. Let's see if I can contact him on the phone here. I might be able to do that.
Yeah, okay. Got you on the phone.
Okay. She wants you to go in and restart the link.
Oh boy. Okay, sure.
All right.
We'll give that a try. Like, just go back and refresh, or just go from scratch.
From scratch if you want.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Hang on.
This is definitely.
Yeah, it's possibly bandwidth. So let me see here. We are on the slow lane, and this time in the afternoon, sometimes the internet just goes to a crawl. So it may be part of that. It's a delay of some kind. I will try the refresh first. Let's see if that works.
All right.
So I'm going to miss you for a second here.
Okay.
Here we go.
And again, folks, we apologize. It's just one of those things. He is in northern Michigan and in a very rural area, so sometimes that happens.
And we might want to add that oftentimes when we do any type of a show on UFO or ETs, we have issues.
Yeah, John's telling me he can hear us fine, but so hang in there. We will get this going sooner or later. Are you in the studio, John? Okay. I see you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, on the phone. I'm going to leave the phone right next to me or somewhere if it doesn't interfere with our mics. But
Okay.
okay, I can hear you on the phone fine. I can't get it's delayed on the computer on the video.
All right.
You're kind of stuck in one position and echoes.
I'll leave my phone on here, and then we'll go.
Yeah, well,
are you hearing the echo?
See, so the problem is we're hearing.
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to have to do this.
Yeah, we're hearing Arjay.
Yeah, you're still delayed. It's kind of funny because I have to hear you on the phone and on this, and on the phone you're fine. I'm hearing you beautifully.
Yeah, possibly if you take it off of speakerphone, John, and just talk on the phone.
But on the computer, it's kind of all bogged down.
Maybe you could take it off speakerphone. Or you
Yeah,
can't?
hang on, let me try that. But then I can't hear
Oh,
you.
that's where you can't hear
Let's-
me.
Right,
Yeah.
unless I do take the headphones off and do it from the phone directly. Hang on.
Yeah, ask him to do it
Phone
directly.
is kind of goofy. Okay.
Yeah,
I'd have
direct
to
phone would
hold
be
this up
fine.
to my face.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay. At least now I can hear it coming through good. So
All right.
now, how about me?
All
How am I?
You sound great, man. All right, I think we're going to roll like this. Again, we just had some technical difficulties. But anyway, Mr. John Shephard, we hope you enjoyed that video. Now, John, I'm going to get into the what you did and what you're doing, but I'm kind of interested in why. I mean, this is amazing what you did. Most people I've come across, including my wife and I, who've had an encounter with a UFO or an ET. First, it changes your perception of reality and life. And then, secondly, you never forget it. And thirdly, you have an obsession. And in your case, I wouldn't really call it an obsession. I would call it a passion that you want to find out the truth, what happened. So, can you share with our audience, did anything happen to you before you started Project S.T.R.A.T that kind of influenced you, or you had an aha moment that you wanted to find out more? Do you have an encounter of any kind?
The only kind of encounter I actually could say I had a number of them, but the one, nothing like a CE3 or anything like that, or close encounter of the first kind. I mean, it'd be more like a CE4 probably, because they're mostly aerial phenomena that I spotted at a distance using a telescope.
Right.
Well, the most important one, I think, that influenced the whole idea of doing Project S.T.R.A.T, there were two things that really went into that. And the one thing that's, as far as a UFO related incident, was in Detroit in about 1964 or 65. I was living in Detroit on the east side, and I was outside. I had been outside. This was during the Dexter Ann Arbor sightings. So I was outside kind of checking it out, expecting maybe I'd see something, just as a kid would do. And I had a 10 power spotting scope, and I was out there. I spent hours out there in the evenings watching the sky, and most of the time all you saw were airplanes or the stars or something like that. Well, one evening, I was out there and I saw something move across the sky that just looked like a distant star, but not. It wasn't like a satellite either. This was before satellites became so common as we have them today. But this thing was moving across the sky very slowly, and it come to a point of about 45 degrees angle of inclination to where I was viewing it, and it dropped a smaller object, a glowing tiny speck of light is the easiest way to describe it. It just looked like something was descending from it. Just a speck of light. The object continued on overhead till you can see it. And then the small speck of light descended really gradually, real slow. And it descended until you couldn't see it because of the city skylight, all the lighting in the sky from lights. But what was interesting was that the next morning I went up. I knew this gal at a restaurant, a little eatery up the street, and I'd go in there, and I used to visit with her. She was a friend of my neighbor right next door, and I mentioned it to her when I went in for some food, and she said, she turned kind of white. She said, "That's really strange. I saw this baseball size object descend outside of the window of my apartment. I'm about 2 or 3 stories up. I was making a sandwich in the kitchen, and I saw this glowing ball of light, and it descended really slow, and it just dissipated or faded away." So that is when I really thought, well, that's a weird coincidence. So apparently there's something here. That first thought is there's more to this than maybe meets the eye in the first observation. So at that point, I figured, well, boy, I'd have to look into this a little more, research it a little further. And of course, right around that same time, there were all the reports on the radio from people interviewing eyewitnesses, eyewitnesses of UFO activity there in right in Ann Arbor, the Dexter Ann Arbor area. And that's, of course, when J. Allen Hynek was called in from the Air Force Investigation Committee to check out these sightings. So a lot of the things that were going on were being reported on WJR radio AM.
and I'd listen to that, and go, wow, there's some weird stuff going on here. And right about, I think it was a year after that, maybe a couple of years, 1965 or so, that the TV series The Outer Limits came on the air. And that was absolutely mesmerizing. It was a truly amazing, mind-opening experience right there. That probably was one of the most powerful influences next to the sighting, the visual sighting and eyewitness report, was that program, because the very opening episode, the pilot episode, was called The Galaxy Being. And the whole idea behind that was that this guy that was the radio technician at a radio station in California had a they had the big radio transmitter out back in a big building in a huge tower. And he was working with some equipment that he had borrowed from the station, and a good part of their power to transmit signals out through the galaxy to try to contact something out there. And in this glass case, this mesmerizing imagery would occur, and they'd see this glowing being, this galaxy being, as they refer to the episode, and there'd be oscilloscope sine waves across the glass. It really made a great effect. But that banks of instruments and that whole idea just totally got me fired up to someday to build something on that scale and do the same thing, but try different approaches to it. So all those things together, and my love for electricity and electronics really got me to the point where, hey, I got to build something like this and try some ideas and explore what's out there in the cosmos. So there's how Project S.T.R.A.T sort of kind of began. And then I incorporated it, or it became a proprietorship, sole proprietorship, I shouldn't say incorporated. And then I had to do lots of work and do lots of things to put it all together and to bring in the funds and things needed to accomplish this. My grandmother was completely a backer, you could say, for me. She really believed in what I was doing. My grandfather was really helpful. He taught me all the machine shop trades, how to drill and machine metal, how to put racks and systems together, the physical things. And I learned how to do all that. So I was able to build a lot of my own stuff, which of course saved thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's kind of a brief history of how it all got started.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because there had to be something that influenced you for sure. And, I was going to talk about your grandparents. Of course, they were your biggest supporters. And when you approached them and said, hey, I'm going to try to contact aliens, they obviously were all on board. You must have had the coolest grandparents in the world, as far as I'm concerned. There's actually a picture of you where you have maybe a third of your equipment set up, maybe a fourth, in their living room. And she's sitting there crocheting or knitting, and your grandfather's like, oh, that's just my grandson, or my son, he's just contacting aliens. So I'm curious, though, when the neighbors came over and when they saw this, what was their response? Because you had to have visitors, and were they thinking, man, yeah, these guys are they're Russian spies, or they're doing something? So I think you have a story to tell us about that. The neighbors, when the neighbors came over.
Well, yes, I do have quite an interesting whole lineage of stories about neighbors coming by, or even people just driving down the road out front of the house. Because that was the fun part. That was more the really interesting thing, because the way the equipment was set up, there were banks of instruments, sort of looked like something out of Irwin Allen's Time Tunnel or the Sea View or something like that in the living room. And there's a picture window in the dining room, and you could see from the road all these banks of lights and these big screens, these big oscilloscope screens with images moving across them, and all these things changing and flickering and so on and so forth. So people would drive by, and they'd start stopping out front of the house and looking in, from out on the road, because they'd see all this, and it caught their attention. It's just something you don't see through most people's windows. Right. And it kind of set a lot of curiosity in motion. And that was kind of a lot of fun, because these people would come out there and and check it out. And eventually they'd get brave enough to actually maybe stop in and ask me about what was going on.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
they
Margaret, I told you. Margaret, I told you they're up to something over there. So
yep.
they're not from here. Yeah,
That's, no, we're not from Kansas anymore.
that's right. So, how old were you when you actually started building the Project S.T.R.A.T?
Oh, that's a good question. I was 72 or 73 kind of when I started getting into it. So I must have been 18, 19, maybe 20. You know, I'd have to do the math.
Yeah, I was in 11th grade in 72, and I was a young kid in my class, so I'd have been 16 going on 17. So you probably were around 19, 20, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I was probably about in that general range because I was born in 51. It's just a quick math question more than anything.
But when you approached your grandparents and said, I want to do this, they probably had no idea that it was going to be that elaborate for sure.
No,
so, go ahead.
Go ahead. I don't think they did. Yeah, my grandfather saw it migrate from the. I'll start in the bedroom, actually, my bedroom, and it got to the point where I had to have a fold-up bed in there just to have room for all the equipment. The equipment is floor to ceiling. It was just everywhere, and it was all big banks of instruments, you know, big pieces. And he saw it, and my grandmother saw it migrate from there on into the living room. And of course, that's when kind of realized that, boy, this thing's getting kind of big. The house is getting overwhelmed or whatever. So it was kind of a funny thing. It grew over time, of course. And it reached the point where my grandfather passed on. And then my grandmother and I decided it might be a good idea to build an addition to make room for all this equipment so we could have somewhat of a house to live in.
Excuse me, John, but Deb, do you get a picture you can pull up with John and his grandparents? There you go. So go ahead,
there
John.
It is.
Go ahead,
John.
That's
the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you can see through the doorway there, the big, like 8-foot long oscilloscope unit. That's the one that had all the lights on both sides of the screen and everything, and that finally moved into the living room. But that's the bedroom. That's how much full it was, and you don't even see the equipment on the opposite side of the room or in the back in that photo. But then then you see all the stuff in the living room, more oscilloscopes and tape machines and other communication instruments and electromagnetic receivers in that rack. My poor grandma and grandpa.
Now, John, I have to ask you this: what the heck were your electric bills like? Were they pretty elaborate?
Oh yeah. Well, back in those days, electricity was maybe 6 or 7 cents a kilowatt hour. Not like today, where it's just killer price, 17 cents is the average for consumers' energy.
Yeah.
And then we had. It's now Great Lakes Energy, but it was top of Michigan Rural Electrification Association back then. Mm-hmm. And those bills were, I mean, for that time, they were kind of expensive, around $300 to $400 a month.
Oh, wow.
$400 one was a high one, but $300 and some dollars a month.
Yeah, back then.
Back then, yeah. Today it'd be $600 or $700 easy.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just curious because you have all this equipment, and I just got to thinking, man, that would probably drive up the electric bill for sure.
Oh yeah, even now we've got close to $300 in electric without even running those big transmitters or all that high power equipment.
Yeah. So from time to time, if you audience wants to ask questions, please put them up there, Deb. And there's another picture of John in his new studio. And so you had to expand way beyond the house. And you started building this elaborate laboratory / studio / project. And my God, look at that. It's just something out of a science fiction movie. It's beautiful.
It really is. That's really what it come across as. And I had so many people that would just really love to come through on tours and see all this. By the way, you're coming in fine right now. So I'm using my headphones again.
Okay, good. So yeah, you expanded probably 6-7-fold from your house out to there. You had that built. Now you built it yourself. Did you do the bricklaying and everything else?
No, we actually ended up hiring contractors to do that
Oh,
work because it
okay.
was it's a big scale thing, and it was all I could do to get all the cabling and power systems in there and move equipment in and assemble it. That was full time right there just by itself. So to do the rest, it was best to hire contracted help, get the permits, all this kind of stuff.
Right. We talked on the phone a couple times, and I had to ask you, had you had any formal training? Did you go to school for electronics, or did you? But you hadn't, and you did this all yourself, man. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. Just the inspiration was a great start, and then it was just
God.
a thing. My grandfather, with his machine shop knowledge and stuff, taught me how to build a lot of things, machine them on a lathe. He used drill presses, grinders, taps, which you thread steel with, to put the screws into the rack frames, and showed me how to measure and get things really accurate and how to build stuff. So that was a big help. That was the biggest boost right there, aside from my grandmother being supportive as she was. And the inspiration. That's
I can't help but
key
think
here,
that you were. I can't help but think you were somehow influenced outside here from the universe. Somebody was guiding you. I don't know. It just seems, that was possible. But
yeah, it's kind of like the Nikola Tesla thing, I guess. He was like that. Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
And how the magic sort of happened. These ideas or visions came to him. And that's sort of how I built the machines too. It was like I could visualize the design I wanted and rotate it in my mind and see different ways to put it together the same way. Kind of like a CAD program today would be used on a computer.
Right. Now, electronics was a lot different back in the 70s, is now. So throughout the time period, did you kind of switch things out and put new stuff in, or do you keep the old equipment too?
Oh yeah, I kept the old equipment, and then I would add more new equipment as needed. And sometimes I'd use parts off of the old equipment to make the new equipment. It was kind of like I didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't rich or anything like that, so I had to make do with what I had. I really did.
And I don't even want to imagine what it all ended up being, but because there's a lot of equipment there, I can't imagine that. When you look at that studio, that project, it's just immense. And
it was.
Yeah. So you started to get recognized locally and then nationally, what you were doing. And you ended up getting a call from the Joan Rivers show, right? And you ended up there.
Yes.
How'd that go?
That was fun. That was interesting. She's a very wild cat. Let's put it that way. And she's fascinating. And off camera, she's even wilder. So, boy, she. But that went well. I mean, it was kind of like it was entertainment. I would put it down as entertainment. It wasn't like a deep knowledge base or anything like that. And she had some other people on there. They kind of wanted to push a debate kind of energy in the thing, and I wasn't as into the debate as I was into just talking about the song going on. So
okay. And then later on, now how old were you when you went to the Joan Rivers show? Do you remember how old you were?
Oh dear, that was 1990. So I can give you a date. That I can do.
That was like that almost 18 years later than when you started. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So you would have been about 38.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. And then of course locally they were talking about you too. But at some point you were approached by a filmmaker named Matthew Killip.
Yes.
And he did a beautiful documentary, which I got to see the other day on Netflix, which actually won an award for a short documentary for the Sundance Film Festival. And I can tell you, when I watched that, man, that brings out every emotion you can imagine. I recommend everybody watch it, and it was done beautifully and really lets people know who you are and what you were doing.
Yes. both in a personal way and an imaginative way, because of what I had been doing all those years, and then my life story is kind of in there. It's sort of capsulized, but it's done so well that it brings, in 16 minutes, it covers a lifetime of experience and meeting people and doing things.
Yeah, and I told you it doesn't really end in a happy ending. It's a happy beginning, because you'll have to watch it. I don't want to give it away, but I encourage everybody to watch it. So, you now in the documentary, you said you really didn't make contact, but there must have been some things going on that you said you were documenting. Hi Terry, how you doing? Documenting, things that were happening, and sightings and things. I mean, can you fill us in a little bit, maybe what happened? And there was that one clip in the Mark Jagger video that the guy's, truck stopped and he saw an orb and stuff. So is there anything you can remember that you might have thought, oh man, something's going on here?
Oh, sure. That was one of the things. Now that happened right around the time, just after I started transmitting the signal from the VMB, or vertical marker beacon, the 150 watt low frequency transmitter that was a propagation at ionospheric propagation transmitter. And those, I would say it was about, let's see, that was 72, 73. So it was within a year's time of going on the air. It was in the fall, September in fall, when that sighting occurred, when that UFO came in front of that guy's truck and shut off his electrical system on the truck. And so it was like right around, just shortly after I went on the air with our first broadcast.
No, that was up by Mount Shasta?
Shenny Creek and, Shush Mountain, they called it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what that is. And it was right not far from the substation. There's a big power substation that's right there. And these things seem to be attracted to power lines, electrical lines, and electrical equipment, as well as apparently nuclear sites too. I mean, I've read a lot about that. But the fact that they are attracted to power lines and low frequencies, they must be able to visually see them or detect them, detect the electromagnetic fields emitted by them. And that's where I got the idea of using the ULF bands. That was one reason for doing that. The other reason was they were unlicensed. You didn't have to go through the FCC and spend unearthly amounts of money and wait for paperwork forever, and so on and so forth.
And so I got a little off track now. Was there anything else you can, tell our audience that you might have said, hey, is something's going on here?
Oh, possibly, yeah. I mean, I've never had a close encounter, okay, but I've seen objects, and I've seen things move through the sky that didn't look like a typical aircraft, or didn't have the proper lighting on them, or whatever. And I've only seen a few of those. One of the more recent incidents was the darndest thing. I was with John, my husband, coming up from a music performance in Cadillac, Michigan. This is probably about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And it was kind of a snowstorm. Okay. There was snow blowing quite a bit. We were just north of Cadillac on US 131. And this thing came, whatever the heck it was like, I thought it might have, it's hard to see in a snowstorm, but these three lights in a triangular pattern came right down on a 30 or 40 degree angle right towards the highway, right where it crossed the highway, but then it didn't land at the airfield. It didn't land. It went back the same way it came. And I thought, now wait a minute, that's not logical. That's no airplane. That's no, jet. And that really did puzzle me. And John saw it too. He was with me. And it was that was the most, I think the most incredible incident that I could actually say I experienced, besides the one in 64, 65 in Detroit, where I saw that little ball of light come down, in the object travel overhead. But I mean, other than that, I haven't had any real sightings, anything, it's too bad. Now, it would be interesting if I did.
Now, what about, what kind of equipment did you have to record that you might be getting some kind of a contact? And did that ever happen?
Yeah, now that's interesting too, because during those in the fall of 73, if everybody remembers, there were a lot of UFO sightings. It was very active all over the world. We had them in Michigan, we had them everywhere. And that was when, this sighting occurred on Shush Mountain, Shanty Creek Road up there. And that is also when I was picking up, right at the same time, along these same time frames, was picking up electromagnetic energy coming in like 120 hertz and higher, coming in over the power lines. I used the power lines in the area as antennas to detect electromagnetic interference or electromagnetic harmonics. Now, normally power lines are kind of noisy. They have the 60 hertz, of course. That's your standard, and then you have some minor, noise from motors starting, stuff like that, clicks, pops, and voltage changes. But in this particular case, and during this time, these harmonics, these overriding electromagnetic signals or voltages would occur on the power lines, and they wouldn't go on and off like something turning on and off. They would fade in and then fade out, just as though an object was traveling over the power lines, emitting some kind of electromagnetic energy, and the power lines, it was causing induction into the power lines. And this is how I was detecting some of the activity in the area. And I contacted the sheriff's department one night when this was going on quite a bit. And they sent a deputy out, and I showed them what I was getting, and I explained it to them. And it was on a big 21-inch oscilloscope screen, so you could really readily see it in detail. And I was explaining what I was doing and what was going on. And I don't know if he kind of realized what exactly it meant, but I explained it as best I could.
Right.
And but they took that into account, I think, with the sightings that were occurring in the area. So there was quite a bit of that. Now it's circumstantial, okay, but it's interesting because it was occurring in the same time frame.
Oh, wow.
And there were also other things that were going on and off over different time periods, like more atmospheric interference, some kind of noise from the atmosphere, static, something was changing more than usual there. Now that could have been sunspot related, I don't know, but I was picking up little more noise than usual. It doesn't, again, circumstantial. Like I can't attribute that to being the phenomenon, but I would say there's certainly something there worth looking at.
Now, this tower you had was able to go how far out into space? I mean, to broadcast signals?
That's still a matter of conjecture, but the one system was an ionospheric propagation transmitter. The primary idea being if they were in closer proximity to where I was located, they could detect that signal and maybe follow it in or respond to it. Okay, wow. That's the 150 watt transmitter we started with. Then I built a big transmitter, which was 1,000 watts, 1,200 watts PR, effective radiated power. And that system had like 160 to 150,000 volt final stage output. So the voltage was very high. And we had a special antenna to radiate that energy into the vertically upward towards space. So I was estimating that it would transmit maybe 250,000, maybe 500,000 miles out. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of noise out there. Once you get a signal and it drops up with the square of the distance, I mean, there's no guarantees. And at that lower frequency, there's a lot of noise. So it may not have gone, out to the edge of the galaxy, but I don't know that. I can't prove it.
Far enough anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so, far enough to home something in if it's nearby anyway.
Now, you said that you were involved with the sheriff department on a few different occasions. And did you invite him into the house or your studio and show him what was going on?
Sure. Oh, yeah, I was open about it.
What was their reaction?
Oh, they were kind of surprised. I mean, at first they thought maybe it was a Russian spy station with for the Russians, but then when they saw what was really going on and checked it out, and more it got around on the news and stuff, people, that's that guy over there with the UFO thing. Right. It was taken more lightly, but at first it was kind of a shock. Most people couldn't believe it. It was visually on such a scale. Yeah, and for being in a house, it's something like you'd see in maybe one of the old Outer Limits episodes. You walk into this house and there's a whole big room full of computers and instruments that you never see in a house normally. Right.
We got our own little NASA right here, right?
Right.
I have to ask you this too now. did you ever get visited by some men in black suits, or do you feel the government had an eye on you?
Oh, sure. I think that might have happened a couple times.
You broke. Oh, we lost him here.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oops, dropped out.
There we go.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. Instead of men in black, I would call them the polished shoes guys.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were from the FAA. The FAA had just, well, this one company had installed a ILS at the local airport, the Antrim County Airport, and so the guys from the FAA wanted to make sure that they knew about my operation, of course, because the director or guy at the airport was a friend, and he knew what I was doing, and it was all no secret.
Mhm.
So they sent someone out with him just to see if there was a chance that there would be interference from the transmitters I was using to their ILS system. And they were totally different frequencies. So far apart, there's not a chance of interference, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but they wanted to know, and I give them all the data, the frequencies, everything, and there was no problem. It seemed like everything was okay. Once they realized how low a frequency we were operating on, and it wasn't near microwave frequencies, they were satisfied.
Okay. Very good. Well, yeah, I wondered, what you were doing. I wondered if the government got involved. Wondered what was going on there. And the man in the shiny shoes, they might have been from the SEC, but might have been for somewhere else, right? So
Sure.
who knows? Now, John, sadly enough, you had to take the studio down, and that was heartbreaking for me, and I definitely for you. I know you talked about it in your Netflix documentary, but they have all this equipment sitting there, and if I guarantee if I ever hit the lottery, I'm going to build you a new studio. I trust me.
That would be so wonderful to get that back up and running, not just
Yeah.
for myself, believe me, but for
Yeah.
people like you and the people in this organization,
Right.
and everybody else that would be interested in such work and such ideas. And it'd be
Right.
an inspiration for others too. That's the thing, and inspire
Yeah.
other creative minds and people to actually do something, to actually build something, not just do, say, a Facebook thing, but actually build something.
Now you haven't given up. You're still doing stuff. Let's bring it up to date here. What are you doing now? What's your projects you got going on now? I know there are a lot. So
Oh yes, plenty of them. I'm always working with new equipment and working primarily to get the studio up and running fully, which is getting really right pretty much there. I might be adding a few more mixed boards and a few things, but I'm doing a lot of music right now. I'm producing music, recording music, and composing music, and trying to get it out. Got it on Bandcamp for now, a lot of it. Got 57 singles out, and I've got 3 albums out on Bandcamp, and then there's one coming out of Stockholm that's hopefully will be out this year, and one that just got released on the Cyclical Dreams label, and they're out of Buenos Aires, Argentina, of all places.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So how can people listen to your music?
Bandcamp's the easiest way. I've got, like I say, 60 releases on their total. So
Right.
you can go to the Bandcamp page. I think it's something like John Shephard, bandcamp.com, or bandcamp.com, John Shephard Music. And there's lots of listening there, tons of it. And it's something that is a passion too, playing and composing and recording music is a magical thing. And music is the very thing I also transmitted into space. It was
Right.
kind of a universal idea.
Yep.
So I went with that. And then to this day, I'm doing all soundtrack kind of ideas, a lot of music for travel in space. That's the big thing for me right now, is I'm
Nice.
doing these beautiful soundscapes for distant travelers.
Yeah, and I've listened to quite a bit of it. I really enjoy it. So yeah, there you can go. You can see on the screen there where you can contact his music. So for you that are very curious and want to hear some good music, there you go. And
Thank you.
Yeah. So, John, what do you think's going on in our skies today?
Oh boy, that's a fine question. I really like that question because we're dealing with some things that some whole new things that are occurring. One of the things that was really interesting that I presented this at a MUFON meeting a few years ago, that's also probably about 10 years ago or so. Linda Moulton Howe was reporting on these drones that were seen in the skies by some hikers out in I'm trying to remember, it was in California, the basin, something in California, and these drones would this thing would materialize kind of out of space, out of nowhere, and you could see most of it, and it had writing on it. And some incredible photographs. The people that got up close enough to photograph these things, and they appeared all over the country for a while. It wasn't just in California, and they look like something out of Stargate or one of the modern day science fiction stories or whatever films. They were very, very advanced, and they could materialize and move very quickly. And they could observe, apparently these are observation platforms, like I say, drone type of drone, but from who knows where and how far away. And that had really set me in motion for more research. And then I came across I think they're called the Q84 or Q86 documents, the CARET documents, and they were highly classified at one point, but they, shall we say, leaked out. And I got copies of them, and they're stunning. They're absolutely astounding. The technology is so far ahead of anything we've got right now, even with all our best science, that it's taken people in the tech community, tech minds out in California, to try to decipher these things. It's just incredible. This is part of the drone technology too, which is very odd because the same writing and language that appears to be imprinted on these drone devices are in these documents. And it goes into how the language itself, how the symbols, they're like symbols, are the activation key. They actually are the activation key that makes the device work somehow. It's the darndest thing. It's just way, 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 way beyond what we're doing now, but I'm sure we'll figure it out someday. It sounds like they got pretty far with it, but they got stumped along the way, believe me.
Going on, do you think we're getting close to full disclosure eventually?
Yeah, I think so. That's the one thing I'm really pleased to see is that a lot more actual Navy videos and military information is coming out and more directly to the people, even though if it seems clandestine in the way it got leaked,
Right.
then they confirm that it is real, that these are real videos taken by Navy pilots, F-16 pilots and stuff. Yes, I absolutely think that they're loosening the strings a little, let's say it that way. And I think with this kind of thing, you can't do it all at once anyway. You've got to bring it out a little at a time for the people to adjust and society to accept the possibility that we are definitely not alone and that we may have even been in contact with some of these beings from out there.
Right.
And maybe got a hold of some of their technology, it would seem, and tried to reverse engineer it. So
yeah, I
here.
agree. I think, through movies and through like Star Trek and things like that. I mean, back in Star Trek, they had a flip phone that you could talk to people, and we had that. So yeah, I think it's something that has to slowly come about. I think for you and I, we want it right now, but yeah, I can see how that's got to be slowly let out. And I think more and more today that it is. I mean, the government admitted even that they did have crash sites, but it's weird because people don't really, they don't really blink an eye. Oh, okay, But to me, it's one of the most fascinating things ever. So, yeah, I think it's picking up, and I think we're getting close, and hopefully that happens for the world, because I think the new technology that's heading our way is going to be beautiful and amazing, and something that will better our lives for sure.
It will. It will. I'm confident of that point.
Yep. So, well, we're getting towards the top of the hour here, John, and fascinating. Just fascinating stuff you told our audience, and it was just a pleasure to talk to you finally and see you and meet you. And I hope
Yes.
and we, my wife and I and Mike Smith put on the Michigan UFO Contact Convention, and maybe next year, if you're interested, we can have you there.
That would be fun. I would love to participate.
Yeah, I would love to have you there because I think your story, you were way ahead of your time, man. I mean, they got CE5 programs now where you're close encounters, fifth kind where people contact me. You were doing this way, way before even that came out. So,
oh yeah,
truly amazing. And there's more to this story. I can't put my finger on my mind on it, but for you to have done this.
Oh yeah, you could think about it over the next month or two and put together a list of some more questions. I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, we could do this again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would love that. I would love that. And like I said, I hope to get up that way someday. My wife and I and meet you, and
that would
John,
be the best.
Yeah, and we could talk about it and have some wine together, and that would be awesome.
Oh, it would.
Yeah. So listen, I thank you so much for being our guest. Thanks for sharing your information. People watch this show on Netflix. John was talking to aliens. I think that's what it was, right? Yeah.
Yep. John was trying to contact aliens. Yep.
John, yeah. It's an incredible story. One that'll touch your heart, and as it did mine. So again, thank you so much. We'll keep in contact. Love you guys, and thank you for joining us, everybody. And you can watch this on YouTube and watch it on Facebook, I believe. So Deb does shaking her head now.
Fantastic.
All right. Anyway, love you, man. Thanks a lot, and we'll keep in touch. Okay.
You got it. Let's do it again.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Take care, man.
Yeah, you too. All right. Thank you, everybody. And you'll see us again. So, and stay tuned to Mystical Awakenings Radio, and we will have some more beautiful shows for you. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Deb. Appreciate
you. You bet. Take care.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.